I have to tell you that in the beginning, way back, I shot with a 4x5 format camera, a big Kodak camera thing mounted on a tripod with an accordion lens that went in and out, and it was quite a device. And I used to load sleeves of film into cartridges, and then you had to, in a plastic bag with arm sleeves, put your arms into the bag and load the film blind. And the film had notches taken out of the edge so you could feel which way was right. Because if you didn't load the emulsion side into the cartridge properly, um, then the photo wouldn't work. And there was a cartridge on, or a photo on each side. So there was each cartridge had two 4x5 transparency film in it. And so you had to keep track of when you pulled one out, you had to remember which side was still live, or else you get a double exposure. So it was quite a nightmare. The lighting was I had two steady lights, and I also had two bounced fluorescent or so bounced flashes on slave units. It worked really well, but it was very, very complicated. It cost me thousands of dollars in film to work it out, but eventually I did. And so I've got the the examples of it here. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 4x5 transparencies. These are all transparencies of illustration work and of my fine art work, and ultimately that wound up making me a lot of money because I took transparencies of all my work when I was young, before the stock imagery market came about. And so, because I had all these high resolution 4x5 transparencies in my work, when people started doing stock sales, like uh, the big stock houses, Saatchi and those kind of things, Saatchi and Saatchi, and so I wound up selling thousands of dollars of imagery to various companies. I sold in one crack $40,000 worth of images to Hewlett Packard in Barcelona, Spain, uh, as print test images for their printers. So they came on a disc, and people could calibrate their printers based on the images that I sold to Hewlett Packard. And that was just one example of the illustration I did of a Basilosaurus for an aquarium in Italy. I sold that 5 or 6 times to David Suzuki and the Nature of Things for their One World show, and I sold it to German Geo magazine. Eventually, I sold it to a textbook company in Texas, and it's now the quintessential image of a Basilosaurus available in textbooks, because there just happened to be no other Basilosauruses around that people could use. It was an ancestor of the modern whale. So anyway, copy standing your work is absolutely huge. My father, in his 40 years of painting, he copy standed, some of his work with little photographs that he used to shoot four paintings on one piece of photographic paper, and then cut it into squares and staple them to index cards to keep track of where the painting went and stuff. So he didn't really document his work properly, and so towards the end of his career, I collected up all of his paintings. I brought them to my studio, and I took 4x5 transparencies of them. So I have maybe 50 of his paintings documented in 4x5 transparency that can be scanned and printed anytime. And those are the only 50 paintings of the hundreds and hundreds of paintings that he did. So it's a real loss that the paintings weren't documented properly. So anyway, if I can say anything about your work, is what you've painted in the past is your history, and once it leaves the studio, it's gone. And one of the major reasons why I started shooting my own 4x5s is that in the illustration business, you just don't have time to take your painting or your illustration to a photographer and wait a few days for them to get a 4x5 transparency made for you. And they're going to charge you at the time $120. Uh, the 4x5s that I shot, each piece of film was $5. So I could shoot a 4x5 for $5 as opposed to 120. I could do it in a matter of minutes. So it made all the difference. So please make an effort to record your work properly. So I want to just do a quick screen share because I have a little slideshow that's not a very comprehensive thing. I'm going to be doing it more. Let me just get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to be doing it more in terms of a live presentation here, but I just wanted to show you this really complex drawing I did. So my painting is here. It is positioned in vertical format. You can see it behind me here. That's the one I varnished yesterday. I've tilted the drawing board up to 90 degrees and I've got the painting facing me. And I put a little piece of tape on the top so it doesn't fall off the table, which can happen. So I've got it pretty much vertical. Now at 45 degrees to the center mark of the painting and 84 inches, 7 feet away from the painting are my two lights, each one at 45 degrees and 7 feet away. So I'll be showing that in a minute. I'll go over there with the camera. And then the camera is in the center. Let me just show you here. This is some of the transparencies. Okay, that's the camera I'm using. It's a Nikon D3200. It is I bought it a few years ago for about 800 bucks Canadian, and it shoots 21.4 megapixels, something like that. And what that translates to is 13 by 20 inches at 300 dots per inch. So it's all about resolution. 300 dpi is the standard print resolution. You want it even higher resolution if you're going to go to a really high quality print, but this does 13 by 19 at 300 dots per inch. So not bad. It just so happens that my printer prints, it shoots 13 by 20. My printer shoots 13 by 19. So I can get a 13 by 19 print at 300 dots resolution without any interpolation. Interpolation means taking an image and enlarging it, which you can do on Photoshop and you can do with some specialty programs that probably do a little better job. The problem is every time you interpolate the image up in resolution, the computer fills in, it interpolates what pixels would be in between other pixels, and it starts to get fuzzy. So you can interpolate up a bit, but the less you have to do it, definitely the better. So this Nikon camera comes with a zoom lens. A zoom lens is a stack of lenses inside the main body of the lens. And that's not great because every piece of lens that you go through adds some distortion. So I happen to have Nikon fixed focus 105 millimeter lens, which was a very expensive lens, and I put it on my Nikon camera, and the optics for Nikon are so good that that it didn't make any difference, and the autofocus feature didn't work on my fancy 105 lens. So I leave the zoom lens on. It works pretty good. I have a skylight filter, which is this little filter here on the camera at all times to make sure the lens doesn't get scratched. That's just a clear glass. Sometimes they have a UV filter on it. You want to take that off before you do your copy stand work, so you eliminate as much as possible the pieces of glass in between you and the image. And this is one of my lights. This is a standard halogen construction lamp. I think it's 400 watt halogen, and I'll show you how I configure that. I made what's called a reflector just out of a piece of mat board that's curved, and it hangs in front of the light. I see I've just got it duct taped onto a piece of wire, And so each side of my studio has one of these sets. And this particular set, which is on the right-hand side of my studio, uh, I take that off because it gets in the way, and then I just tuck it away. So that's what it looks like. So what I'm trying to do, I don't want direct light onto the artwork. I want bounce light. I want reflected light. The reflected light is much more even. It reduces any hot spots. If you shine the light directly on the artwork, you're going to get hot spots. So a diffused reflected light from each corner, 45 degrees, 7 feet away, is the optimum uh, answer. And there's the other corner. So I've got this corner is permanently set up. The other one I have to set up each time I shoot. And there you can see the reflector. The light is shining down into this white card that's curved, and it bounces light back towards the. There's another angle of it back towards the artwork, and there it is on in the dark. And I think there's another one a bit on in the dark. And that's the camera. This is my studio set up here. And the camera's on a tripod. You have to shoot it on a tripod. Listen, you can shoot stuff outside under natural light, but it's never controlled, and it's never the optimum day when you want it to be. So if you can set up a system in your studio where you don't have to worry about whether it's sunny outside or it's raining, or if it's cloudy, take the time to consider doing a setup, because it's really worth it. It's so important to document your work. There's the light that's on. Um, there's the camera out of focus, and the reflector again. All right, so there's my studio setup. You can see on the right-hand side is a large painting. You see how shiny some of that painting is from this angle. If it's not at 45 degrees, you pick up those reflections in the photograph. So 45 degrees makes a huge difference. So this light on this side is 7 feet from the center of the drawing table, and so is the one behind me in this shot. Okay, this is my camera. I shoot in manual mode, and I always shoot RAW format. RAW format is not TIFF, certainly not JPEG. RAW format is the pixels that the camera captures without any kind of formatting. So TIFF formats it into a certain type of shot. JPEG is definitely not something you want to shoot because it's a lossy format. Every time you resize it, you lose pixels. JPEG, what it does is it clumps like pixels together, and depending on what level of quality of JPEG you select, it lumps larger or smaller groups of JPEG pixels together, and when you resize that, it makes a total mess. So don't do it in JPEG. You can convert, once you finish the shot, you can convert RAW into TIFF, and that's where I make my master image where everything is adjusted and squared and color matched. And then from there, I make a series of JPEGs for website usage and stuff like that. But you want to have a master image. And so I always shoot in RAW. And you can see here, I adjust the aperture so that it's center. That means it's getting the right amount of light. My ISO is 100, so that's kind of the film speed in the old days. And then, okay, that's what the image looks like on the camera. And you can see there's a line grid on this camera. So I try to keep the image as square as possible. You can see I'm getting a little bit of distortion in the center. A lot of if it's out of square, I can square it up in Photoshop. I can also show you how to do that to get it all square when you got your master shot. And the camera, see, it's on manual. And I always use the self timer. My studio is carpeted, and I found that when I even just push the shutter release down to fire the camera, it can cause movement. So I use the 10-second uh, uh, delayed shot self timer, and and that seems to eliminate any problems like that. Now, here's the other thing that I do. I shoot one big master image, which is the whole painting in one shot. Then I shoot it in sections. So I flip the camera upright like this, and I shoot it in vertical sections. So each section is a 13 by 19 at 300 DPI chunk of the painting. I go 1, 2, 3. In this horizontal painting here, I'm probably going to get 4 shots, and making sure that each image overlaps the other one a little bit. So when I have those 4 shots, I can take those, and in Photoshop, I can merge them all together to one big image, which is now um, uh, printable in giclée form or print. It probably is going to be a 400 or 500 megabyte image once they're all tiled together. But and I don't always do the digital work there, but I have the raw images. So if somebody decides they want to do a print of an image, I have those digital files all pre-recorded, and I just go and merge them all together and make one big printing image out of it. So that's what I do. Oh, that's just where I store the lens or the light. Um, so where are we now? Okay, I think that's all the slideshow I want to do. So okay, here I'm back on my other camera now. I want to show you a little bit about the Photoshop process of creating a master image from this raw image that I've taken, raw format image that I've taken. I've taken the card out of the camera. I've loaded it into a different laptop because that laptop had the software to convert from raw format into TIFF format. That is the Nikon software that comes with the camera, has a conversion system that will convert raw to TIFF. So I've taken all that image, put it on a thumb drive, and transferred it over to my my desktop computer, which has Photoshop on it. I don't have Photoshop on this computer that I'm filming you now on. So I'm juggling between 3 different computers here, but I've got my other camera set up facing my screens so I can show you a little bit about Photoshop. So let's go over there. I'm just going to switch over to the other camera here. Here we go. All right. So this is my this is my left-hand screen of my large computer. It's a Mac Tower laptop, very old, still works, and it has Photoshop on it. You can see here is the photograph, the master photograph that I took in raw format, converted to TIFF, and that's it there. I have 2 screens in my studio here. The one on the left is my palette monitor, where I keep all my Photoshop palettes separate from the working surface. And then this is the actual working monitor that I'm going to be working with. I use a tablet. I have a tablet on my system here. So I use a stylus. Here's my stylus and a tablet to control the computer. So here we are in Photoshop. I'm just going to enlarge that a little bit and get it in there. No, not quite enough. I'm going to reduce it a little bit. All right, so what I want to do in order to square this image up is from the top here, I'm going to pull down the guideline, and from the side, guideline, and from this side, the guideline. What I'm going to do is square this image up. It's actually pretty darn good. Sometimes they can be quite wonky. All right, so it's a little hard to see, but there's some little gaps in between. So this is my layers palette. I'm going to make a copy of that top layer because I can't adjust it otherwise. and just I'm going to just move that to the side here. Now I'm going to go to image, adjust, no, edit, transform, distort. Okay, so that gives me the ability to distort this image. You can see on each corner of the image, there's a little square box, and it allows me to pull the image and stretch the image one way or the other. What I want to do is line those lines up so it's square to those lines. So on this side, I have to come out on the top a little bit so that it's square to those guides. That's pretty good. Down a bit on this one. And that'll return your image to square, and everything within the image will be square, including the horizon, which if you are wonky on your shot, the horizon is not horizontal, people are going to notice. So take a little time getting that really nice and square to those guides. There you go, and that's pretty good. Okay, then I'm going to go view. Oh, I can't clear the guides. Why can't I? Oh, I have to hit return, and it saves all those distortion changes. It's a pretty big file. This file here is 137 megabytes. So in one shot, I've got 137 megabyte image. Most web images are something like, 800 800 pixels across. So I've got a huge image here. And now I'm going to go view clear guides, and then I'm going to crop it to the edge of the painting. Go. Go. Getting as much of the painting in as possible. There and there. Oops, a bit too much. There. Okay, tap in the middle. And now I've got the image completely square all around, and I can now adjust the color. Now in Photoshop, there are a lot of different ways to adjust color and contrast and all kinds of things. You want to have the original painting with you to refer to the painting as you're adjusting the color, and you need to have a monitor set up with a color gamma on your computer monitor set up accurately, and that's a whole other ball game we're not going to get into right now. But I have adjusted these monitors to be what's called print WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. When you see what's on the screen there, when it prints out with most printers, hopefully it will be as you see it on the screen. And it takes a while to figure that out. That's something for another video, I think. So from this point on, I can zoom right in. And what I'll want to do is get right in there close. I'm now at 100%. If you see up here, 100% of the view. And so any little glitches, I could take the clone tool and sample and then take out any little kind of spots or glitches, anything that looks kind of a little bit, I'm getting some of the texture of the canvas underneath. So I'll go through and I'll just carefully tweak the image, cleaning it up. And I'm just going to go, before I do anything else, I'm going to go Command S, and I want TIFF, Macintosh, no compression. Okay, so now I've saved what I've done, the cropping and adjusting the squareness of the image, and I'm going to adjust the color. Like I said, there's lots of different ways to adjust color in Photoshop. Each one is slightly different. So depending on what you're trying to get, if you're familiar with Photoshop, you know which approach to use to adjust the color properly. So one of my favorites is selective color. Now in selective color, here's the never mind. This is the menu for selective color, In it, I can adjust only the reds. I can adjust how much cyan or how much red there, or how much cyan is in the reds, how much magenta is in the reds. So I can adjust each color very, very specifically. And it goes, I can adjust the yellows, the greens, the cyans, the blues, magentas, whites. Neutrals is the main one. And that's adjusting the overall image. So I can make it less or more cyan, magenta, same kind of thing, all the way down. And then black, I can lighten it up or darken it down. And then there's also a black setting, so I can increase the saturation of the blacks in the image or lighten them up. I can also tint them, so if I want to have the blacks looking more blue, I can do that. Or if I want to have the blacks looking more yellow, I can do that. And the same with all the other colors. Okay. So that's my favorite method of adjusting the color. I'm not going to do it live because it takes a while to pick through the image and clean it all up, get it perfect, and then adjust it just the way I want it. I want to be able to do that, over a space of time. So anyway, that's basically how you prepare it in Photoshop, and then from there, from this image, which is the master image, I save that as the master image, and then I make smaller versions. My website does 560 megabyte, 60 pixels high. So I'll make one slightly larger so they can zoom in, and then I make another version that goes to. I should probably show you that. I have a thing that I use, a format that I use, fine art, new paintings. So these are all my new paintings. Let's just pick one. And so this particular painting here, there's no master because I keep the master on a backup or else it clogs my hard drive. But this is what's called a proof image. And what I do is I create this border that's a formatted border that all of the proofs that I have, that I make for each image, are all the same graphics, same typeface, same information. It just says the name, size, got my title over here. And this image, this is 100%. So this is the email image that I can send to customers when I get an inquiry about a particular painting. So it's large enough format that it can show a fair amount of detail, but it's small enough to be able to email. It is 5.7 megs, but that's opened up in JPEG format. It would be, let's take a look. It would be 704K. So it's pretty easy to email. It's a very small image. And then I have another image here. This is the one that's sized for my website. And then quite often I'll do a large image. This one is at 300. So it's 10 by 7 at 300, 20 megabytes. So it's a pretty big image. That's for, these kind of images are for entering competitions and shows, that kind of thing. So so I save a number of different formats, and then I keep everything in a file, along with each one has its own back label and certificate of authenticity, and a bunch of writing and formatting and stuff like that. So I keep track of all the information about that particular painting here.